and we are live on not Facebook, on YouTube and uh-oh,
Instagram.
there it goes. It was delayed in letting me go, but yep, we're on Instagram now.
Awesome. What's up, y'all? It's Miles the Millennial.
And it's your boy Rex Howard Jr.
And it's Coach Lauren Jackson. Hi guys, happy Tuesday. I almost forgot what day I was on that quick.
Child, the week seemed like it's been long and short at the same time, so I get it.
Absolutely.
What's up, guys? We're back with another episode of Real Talk, Real Growth. Today's episode is going to be an amazing one. This came from another conversation where we said, who taught you, right? And what we mean is, who taught you how to love? What person, when you were coming up, as you've been developing in your life, really showed you what love is, or perhaps what love isn't? We're gonna have a powerful discussion about that today. Before we get started on that conversation, we first want to say, make sure you are subscribed to our newsletter. The links are in your bio or in all our bios, so you can go in there, click the link, subscribe to the Real Talk, Real Growth newsletter. That will allow you to follow us every single time we have things going on and we send messages out. You'll be kept in the loop. Is there anything that any of you have to say for yourselves personally to announce to everyone at the beginning?
Yeah. So if you're in a position where you're looking for a relationship counselor, a relationship coach, personal development coach, might want to focus on emotional intelligence, want to work through some trauma with, or just some difficulties that you may be having through just different transitions in life, I got you. All you got to do is go to resolvecc.com and book a session with me. And if you're not ready to pull the trigger just yet because you want to know a little bit more about me, literally, you can look at I am Rex Howard Jr. on Instagram, or go to Let's Talk Like Man podcast and hear my thoughts. So let's make it happen.
Awesome.
Coach yes. So tomorrow we are having a webinar. It's going to be a marriage webinar. It's called The Unspoken Truth About Marriage. And I'm going to be teaching on the key missing ingredients that you need in order to restore trust, passion, and intimacy back into your marriage. So if you have been struggling with communication, if you consider yourself a power couple, but right now it's given power outage, it's given struggle, it's given I'm tired every time I talk to you, you don't understand anything that comes out of my mouth, then I'm going to highly recommend you click the link in my bio. Grab your virtual seat. It's going to be a workshop, and so it's going to be amazing. I'm going to be giving not only the tips and tools, but also I'm going to leave you with resources on assessments for your marriage where you are right now. Also, I'm also going to be giving you a cheat sheet. Listen, I don't know a person that don't love a good cheat sheet on what to say and what not to say. Okay, so we can win together, because most of us, we be saying things at the wrong time, and that's exactly how we be in a doghouse. So I got a whole cheat sheet resource for you. 25 prompts that will help you very quickly. You can save it to your phone, make it your screensaver, if you will, to make sure that your communication connects and not disconnects from your partner. So I'm excited about tomorrow's webinar.
I love it.
That's phenomenal. I think also, before we get started, one thing I wanted to mention is the reason we even want to have this conversation is because I think many of us, we rush to get to the punch. We rush to get to the party. We rush to get to relationships, but we don't know how to stay there. Right? We want the wedding, but we don't want the marriage. Right? We want the relationship, but we don't want the tough conversations. So it's just like, the thought process of who taught you always comes up. I find myself asking my lady, like, who do you think taught you how to be a wife? Right. I know, like, from our conversations, I hear all the time what your father did. So it gave you a great example of what you want in a man and what you want to see in your husband, but what do you want to see in yourself? Right. So I think this is the reason why this conversation is going to be so important, because I just want the people that are listening to reflect. And of course, it's going to be a huge reflective session for us as well, because if we don't know who taught us, then you got to ask yourself, when I give my love or I share my love, where did I get it from? Right. Where did I get it from, and who modeled it so I could see it? So that's I just want to preface that conversation so people know exactly where we're headed.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, do we want to hop right into the discussion?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, the first question that I have for you guys, just to kind of get an understanding of where you guys are and where I am as well, is um, who or what in your life showed you what love is?
Hmm. I'll go first. I'll say for me, um, I would say the first example was my parents, right? Watching my mom and my father together go through ups and downs and every single aspect of life, emotionally, spiritually, financially, all different times where there was different seasons of ups and downs. And seeing them at the end of the day say, we chose to do this together. And so we're going to go through not only the good times together, but we're going to go through the tough times together as well. Um, I've mentioned in the past that like one of my main requirements for what I was looking for in a wife was something that an understanding that I really saw take place between my mother and my father um, when finances got really tough and they had to completely adjust the dynamic of what roles they played in the household. And I saw, my mother never belittle my father or talk down on my dad and always make sure that he was included in every decision. And I saw my father make himself of service to my mother in any way possible, no matter what circumstances were going on. And I think that that laid a really good foundation for me being able to say, like, when I'm looking for a partner, that has to be a characteristic. They have to know how to fight. They have to know how to, as we like to say, suffer well. They really do have to have that in them because there's going to be times where it's going to be necessary. And if you only know and only expect the good things, you have no idea what you're going into when you get into marriage.
That's good. That's actually really amazing. What you got, Coach? You're muted.
Sorry. Typically, I think our first um, taste or sample, if you will, of marriage happens with our parents or even grandparents sometimes, right? Depending on the circumstance. And I know for me, my first taste of marriage was with my parents. Seeing my parents go through ups and downs, and then ultimately seeing my parents go through divorce.
Mm,
Um, and then, of course, my grandparents, my mother's parents were married over 50 years. My dad's parents were also married for a very long time as well. So, and of course, I had aunts and uncles. So I think family, a lot of times for most of us, is the first time we ever really experience a little glimpse of what marriage could look like.
mm.
Yeah,
That's good. That really is good. What
that
you got
is.
next?
Yeah, yeah. So what's so interesting is, my parents were young when they got married. I wouldn't say I learned what love was by watching them be married. I learned what love was by watching them sacrifice for us.
Hmm.
Right. So I think, just based off being at home, my core belief of what love is sacrifice.
Hmm.
It's, are you willing to sacrifice sleep to make sure that the kids are where they need to be, that the kids are fed? Are you willing to sacrifice more time at work or sacrifice being at home or not being at home to be at work to make money to bring back into the house to make sure we have what we need? Are you willing to sacrifice missing out on some of the sports or some of the activities that we have to perform in or play in simply because you are handling business? So I truly, truly, truly learned that love was sacrifice. So I think I took that throughout all of my relationships. And one thing that I was trying to see in every single one of my partners is, what are you willing to sacrifice? So I struggled with people that I dated that were selfish. I struggled with people that I dated that came from spoiled backgrounds. I struggled with dating people that never had to share anything because love is sacrifice. That's what my core belief is on. And it just makes me think about me and my frat brothers on when we were just going through our process. We would buy a pack of chicken and break them bad boys down, and everybody got a piece. You know what I'm saying? Even if we had 6 biscuits, we're gonna split them bad boys in half, and everybody gonna get a biscuit. We sacrificing time, we sacrificing food, we sacrificing energy. When I'm taking long trips, I'm driving, and I got one of my guys with me, I'm sacrificing my sleep to make sure he good. So we talking to each other so he don't fall asleep.
Yeah.
So it's all about sacrifice. So when I think about love, and I think about like my earliest memories, it wasn't affectionate love. It wasn't intimate love. It wasn't the type of love that was warm and cozy. It was love that was sacrificial. So that's, my answer to that.
That's good. You know, I think about the fact, what you're bringing up, because we all have different dynamics. Um, Rex, Coach Lauren, both of you guys have dealt with your parents being married and then divorcing, right? Um, Me, I didn't experience that, but there were certain things that I did see and didn't see that impact me. And so I've gotten pieces of what love is from other people, and from other examples. And so what I got from my mother and my father was fight and consistency, right? But I didn't see a lot of romance, right? There wasn't a lot of that in the household. They were very not big on the PDA in front of us. I don't know what happens behind closed doors, but from what I could see, I didn't see a lot of that. My first time seeing like a very open, healthy example of a husband and a wife being passionate for each other was really my brother Malcolm, his parents, right? His mom and his pops, they were so in love with each other all the time. Like every time I come around them, he can't. His dad can't keep his hands off his mama. Every time they get to drinking, they get to loving on each other, and it just remind me of what it's like when you in college and you have your little love story and all that stuff, and you passionate about that love. You're on fire about that love. And his parents always remind me that no matter how old you get, like you have to keep those things that are important to you guys, that are your moments, your spaces, your songs, your spaces that give you those memories. Keep them alive and develop new ones. um and then when it came to like focusing on the home, right? um I think a lot of young couples, especially when they get married, the struggle is how do we now learn how to navigate friends and all these external factors? We still somewhat young, we still want to be outside and do stuff, but also maintain a household. And my pro fight Adrian and his wife Amber were a great example of that. I remember so many times we'd invite Adrian out to do different things, and he'd be like, "Gotta ask the wife." Adrian wasn't coming if he said he got to ask the wife. We already knew what was happening. But at the time, we thought that he was asking so that he could get out of it or anything like that. But then we learned, like, one, it was a communication thing. He wasn't going to make any moves without making sure the household is together, because Lord knows what she might have going on. And two, more than anything, is like, I don't need to be hanging around you youngins. Like, y'all go have y'all fun. I don't need to be here. Home is where I need to be spending my free time. And then a passion for God that came from my pastor back in Nashville, Pastor Finch and Dr. Darcy. Like, those two had a love for God and stepped into roles within the church and have used their talents for the church, and have really showcased how you have love for God within your marriage. So I think that all these different people play a role, and maybe your parents showed you one thing, but they may not be the full scope of everything that's necessary that you got to witness. And so sometimes you have to pull from different areas.
That's actually really good. So here's going to be a more direct question, especially for you, Coach. What woman in your life embodied the type of qualities that you wanted as a wife?
Are you asking before I became a wife or after being a wife?
Before. So before, in the process of you growing up, you were sitting with mentors, you're praying, you're watching people, you're observing, you got people that's taking you under their wing, or maybe they didn't, not really sure. But was there ever any woman in your life that you were just like, man, I love the way she carries herself, I love the way she treats her husband, I love the way she shows up for her kids? Like, if I could be anything, or if I could take bits and pieces from anything, I'd take some from her. Did you have anybody like that?
If I'm honest, no. My example of marriage is not the one I wanted. It was one I was destined to change. Like, I didn't see I didn't see it. To me, like, even if you quote unquote said, "Oh, I like the way she serves her husband. There was always like this underlining control issue, narcissistic energy that wasn't what I wanted.
Mhm.
And so, quite honestly, I was more so on the quest to do it differently. I've always been a blueprint. Like I've had blueprint energy on me since I was a little girl. And I wish like the woman I am to women now and to wives now is the woman I wish I had when I was getting married at 20 years old. Um, and because I was the first one out of my girl group to get married.
Mhm.
So like I was the first out the gate to do a lot of things. Um, and so it came with a lot of tough lessons that, unfortunately, I'm from the South. So there's a certain stuff that grown folks ain't gonna do around you, or they ain't gonna say around you, or like there's certain level of vulnerability that's missing.
Yeah.
And even in the church, I grew up in the church, I'm a PK, but there's still a level of vulnerability and transparency that's not there. That even though we went through 6 weeks of premarital counseling, can't tell you to this day like what I took. And so I'm gonna implement that. Um, and so I always tell people the reason my marriage failed is so that others didn't have to. Because different from probably my experience and others is that I'm willing to be honest about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that is where people really get to see love in action. Because love is a sacrifice, and it is harder to love people, especially when you don't like them, especially when they done wronged you, especially when you feel like you don't have to deal with them and you do. And to me, there were a lot of things that I wasn't taught and told about what partnership looked like. Love, quite honestly, is not enough. It's a good part,
Yeah.
but it ain't enough.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that's not what we're teaching in the churches, or like what we saw. I know it's not what I saw growing up. And what I saw was like, yeah, that's what I'm not gonna do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm not gonna deal with. That's
Yeah.
what we're not gonna go. And I'll tell those here now. I'll land my plane here. Be careful how you judge a season that you weren't a part of in the beginning. Because the thing about God, when you be like, that's what I'm not gonna deal with, God will be like, 1 second,
Yeah.
I'm about to let you deal with that exact same thing, and let me see how it fits you now.
That reminds me of something I was. Okay, so when you say that, are you saying that from the perspective of seeing that in somebody else?
Mm-hmm. I was very judgmental of my parents' marriage.
Mm.
I was like, I couldn't understand. I'm like, I don't know. It's
You
getting
sticking around for this?
hey, back your stuff up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could not understand for the life of me. But when I got older, though,
Yeah.
the word says when you get of age, you put away them childish things and those childish thoughts, because in your mind, it's like you give people, your parents come with titles. Titles, entitlement, and requirements. So you already put them on this pedestal, and you're like, why are you moving like that?
Yeah.
But quite honestly, my dad got married at 21. My mother was 26.
Yeah.
I got married at 20.
Yeah.
And nobody thought it was a stupid idea for me to get married at 20, because I was always wiser beyond my years. However, the only person who thought you should not get married right now was my daddy. And he was right.
Coach, first off, thank you for your vulnerability. Because that ain't easy. And I think that, shoot, I don't even know what the statistics are on divorce, but I know that at least in the Black community, I think there are so many people who relate probably more to your story than maybe relate to a story like mine, right? And that is why it's so important. You said that lack of vulnerability. I think that when parents aren't vulnerable with their kids, right, and don't showcase certain things to their kids, I'm not saying you tell your kids every single thing and they're not prepared for it, but there should be a level of honesty to say, look, your mama and your daddy argue too. Your mama and your daddy, when you hear your child make a comment, they're watching some show and they're talking about divorce would never be an option. This is that. And that. Sometimes it's okay for you to tell your child, oh, your mom and your daddy was close at one point. Stuff like that sets a realistic expectation for a child to not walk through life thinking that everything has to be perfect. And then if it isn't perfect, well, this just must not be meant to be. And that was something that I struggled with for a long time, was because there wasn't a lot of vulnerability in my household about things that were going on. I didn't know a lot of stuff and a lot of fights that happened behind closed doors. Granted, I'm thankful that my parents kept those things, those arguments, any yelling, and all that stuff. We didn't see that because it helped us learn healthy communication. But at the same time, it left me blind to what it sounds like when you struggle in a marriage, because I never saw the struggle, right? And it would have been helpful to receive some of that vulnerability. But as I've gotten older and we've had conversations with my mom, we've had conversations with my dad, they tell us like, oh yeah, we've gone through this. And you would be so surprised how many things you're like, oh, so y'all just normal. Everybody go through this. Y'all just stuck through it, right? Y'all fought through this. Y'all made it work. It wasn't easy. Y'all didn't just figure this out on some easy stuff. And Coach, another thing that I'm realizing is sometimes when you don't have the example of what to do, the example that you get is what not to do, right? And so your entire goal is, I'm going to be the opposite of that. But that also leaves holes. And it's a good thing to want to desire different. But when you don't have an example that's doing the right thing, to feel that and say, okay, this is how you find the middle ground, the balance to this. Oftentimes what happens is you go too far to the opposite end. Right. And then you're doomed to make mistakes on that end, because if you saw a woman that was too dependent on a man and got taken advantage of, you now say, I will never depend on a man in my life. If you saw a father that dominated over his wife and abused that power, you take on the route of, I will not be the one to be strong in the relationship. I'll let her lead so that she doesn't feel diminished. Right. These things can cause you to go two polar opposites. So I do want to also say to everybody in the chat, tell us who taught you how to love, or who taught you the wrong things, and expound, if you feel open to, about what it is that you experienced, what you learned from that, what you would put up with, what you wouldn't, and what you're seeking in your own life. But yes, that's what I had to say.
Now, you literally just explained like how I became this version, because I'm very much so a recovering hyper independent, very much so. And it's because I saw my mother's like a traditional Southern belle. Like, sis is on Driving Miss Daisy. Like she just is. And she's gentle and like she's, nurturing, but sometimes it's like borderline people pleasing. And so that's just who she is. And so for me, I was like the aggressor. I feel like you talk up enough. I feel like you let people play with you too much. And that for me was giving no. So you take that and then seeing like, okay, so what's the thing that allows the person, like who allows who to have power? What came from that for me was my dad used to say all the time, when people believe that you need them, they'll treat you like you need them. So for me, finances was the thing. My dad measures a lot on a dollar. So if you're able to take care of yourself, he's like, cool, right? But that's his survival story. So I get it. But for me, coming into a marriage, we got it out the mud together. We had nothing together in college. We built everything together. And I worked just as hard, if not harder. I made the bulk of the money many years. But sometimes I feel like because I made the money and I'm doing all like quite frankly, I should have worn some of these pants. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it was a power struggle. It became a power struggle. It went from being like you hear people say this, iron sharpen irons, and we had this healthy competition, and we go back and forth. But let me just be clear: you cannot compete against somebody that you claim you trust, because even when you're on a football, I don't care if you're an NFL football player, even if you're on a team with somebody, you always know that if you get injured, that second ring, he waiting.
Yeah.
He not, and when they decide that they want to renew his contract and cut yours, he's not gonna say, "Oh, let me give you this 6 figures you're gonna lose." He not. So at the end of the day, you can't really tell me that competing in your marriage is healthy. because there's always going to be a hint of distrust that's going to sprinkle in there. And one thing about salt, you don't need much for it to be salty.
Goodness gracious.
That's good, coach.
And we don't talk enough about that.
That's
why power couples be struggling.
Yeah, it is too much. It is too much power. Everybody wants to be the front runner. Everybody wants to make the decisions. Everybody wants to be able to say that they're doing this. So that, I've actually never seen too many power couples work out unless they have solidified roles of one person was the bread person, one person was the homemaker. Right. And then typically when both people are the breadwinners, the kids miss out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the kids realize in that situation with two couples as being a breadwinner, love is working and making money and not spending time in communication and being affectionate. Right. And then when you realize that you come in the household and you live in a poverty situation, love is making sacrifices.
Yeah.
Right. So it don't matter. No matter whatever level it is, it's gonna hit something. So I do want to shift gears, do want to ask this question.
Yeah.
Was there a moment when you realized your understanding of love was either healthy or unhealthy? And what triggered that awareness?
Yeah. Go ahead, coach.
My divorce. You know, one day I'm gonna write a book that talks about all the things my ex-husband was right about. There's a lot of things he was really right about. He used to say stuff like, Lauren, you're an extremist. Either you really love me or you really hate me. You do not operate in the gray very well at all. You are black or white. And you need somebody to pick a side, and they better pick it fast. And he was right. And it comes from distrust. Because God operates in gray. When Adam was asleep when God created Eve, not awake. He was asleep. So that means he had to trust. He didn't know what God was going to do while he was asleep.
Yeah.
God had already made a decision, a determination, and a plan before he went to sleep what he was going to do. But Adam, in order for somebody to just go to sleep on you, they got to trust you. I know when somebody go to sleep on me in the car, they trust my driving. Because if I don't trust your driving, I'm not going to sleep.
It's a fact.
Period, point blank. I'm too much like my daddy. I need to know where we went, what exit we got up of. I'm able to tell you exactly where we were. Because just in case you had me on the side of the road, you got to know how to tell people where I'm at.
Yeah.
So my divorce taught me that. It taught me that I was too stern in areas that I should have been flexible. It taught me that I was too critical in areas when I needed to be nurturing. It taught me that I was not emotionally safe and that my ability to fly off the handle was a lot. And I'll say this, I won't say like fly off the handle, like physically fighting, but he probably sometimes would rather me just square up than use my mouth some days. Because he knew I could flip and flash out. That's why I tell people, being with a strong black woman, it is not for the weak, but it is worth it if you learn how to manage her. Because quite honestly, we have a survival kit thing going on with us. And so that's the things that I had to learn about marriage, was that that love for me was very transactional. And I didn't want to see it as that. But the truth was that it was. And that I wasn't living as 1 Corinthians chapter 13. My love was not patient. It was rude. It was not kind. Yeah. It could be very cynical. And he was very like positive natured and open. And so I learned in my divorce that although I didn't do everything wrong and I didn't do everything right, the areas that I could have done better, I try to do those things better to this day. You couldn't pay me money to tear him down like I used to, because I could weigh him thin in a text message. But you couldn't pay me to do that today. And I think when we come to that level of awareness, and we can come to that space of humility and not always try to point fingers, like point blame, that's when we can get free.
That's
That's
really
good.
good.
So I do want to ask this before Miles goes.
Mhm.
You said something that kind of stood out to me, and I've heard this on another podcast before, just a question. But you said it's hard being with a strong black woman, but you just gotta learn how to manage her. What would you say to the men that are saying, "Why do I want to manage a woman?"
Oh, because that's connected to leading her. So when you think about like, if you're at a job and you are leading a team, you're managing them.
Mhm.
So these people, just like that way, they can quit you at any time and
Yeah.
go find another job. So if you're trying to get the best out of the person, the cheat code is to learn them, to understand them, to create space for them to grow, give them opportunities where they may not or could be ready, but you're allowing them that space to either make it or break it, right? That space of grace, because that's where transition happens. And so a lot of times you get this toxic masculinity that wants to come in and it wants to control and it wants to tell you what to do and it wants to lord over you. There's a reason that in the Old Testament he was Lord, but in the New Testament he was God, he was Father.
Hmm.
That's a relationship, which means I get to know you. And so when you get to know that person, now you can help to level set in moments where maybe they wouldn't have had that before. And that's why I say it that way.
That's some good feedback. And I got one more follow up, going deeper in the bag. Um, so does that take a woman off the hook of managing herself?
Absolutely not. Matter of fact, she wants to manage herself more when she sees how you manage her.
That's
Like
good.
because there's also this mindfulness and carefulness as well. That's where intimacy happens.
Yeah.
It's that intellectual intimacy, right? And
Yeah.
so when I see how you manage me, then I want to manage me at that same level because you're managing me at a level of value, not seeing me as a depreciating asset as if I was a car that you could ride in, but as a house that the longer you stay in me, the greater I become.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's good. I appreciate that big time. And I hope everybody's listening. Fellas, if you have any more questions, drop it below. Uh,
Facts.
but Miles, what about you, brother? What's your answer to that question?
Man, first off, to what Coach said, that was really good. I think that men need to first realize that like it's not gonna always be peaceful. Like when you growing with somebody, there's going to be growing pains. There's nothing that happens in life that grows without struggle, without periods of darkness, without periods of 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 real root foundation taking place. But in order for them to grow, what do they need? They need nutrients. They need to be poured into. They need to be cultivated, right? Relationships are all the same. And if you want a beautiful garden, as your wife, well, then you have to make sure you're watering it. You have to make sure that when it's being stubborn and isn't growing, anybody that's had plants, you know that sometimes that plant looks like it's dying. You like, man, I've been watering. What do you need? And you have to be able to see through that and say, okay, what's going on? What's wrong here? And how do I fix it? That is a part of your calling. I'm not saying for you to be with a woman that causes problems, right? A woman that is just, what does the Bible say, a quarrelsome woman? Like, I'm not saying for you to be with a quarrelsome person, but what I am saying is when you quarrel together, realize that that is a part of growth. So long as it's not a normal, so long as it's not the standard, so long as it's not the baseline that we're always fighting, and you see growth, then it might be something worth sticking out. Um, but to answer the question, which was when did I learn that my example of love was or was not, proper? So it's two circumstances. My first heartbreak. What I learned from that was you got to choose better because everybody is not your mom and your dad, right? And everybody doesn't come from the type of household that you came from. And so the expectations that I walked in there with, I won't even say the expectations, because at that point I didn't have really expectations. I just had a open heart full of love that just wanted to pour into somebody. Um, and when I was met with such resistance on a continuous basis from a person who didn't come from that and had a lot of trauma, I had to learn that, who a person is and how they treat you is far more dependent on who they've been their entire life than what you've been for the amount of time that you've met them. And you need to learn how to read a person and choose if this person is living by their trauma and is consumed by their trauma and unwilling to move forward from their trauma, or if this person actually cares enough to grow with you, build with you, and learn from their mistakes, right? Because when you choose the wrong person and they're unwilling to grow, you're going to go through hell. So that was what I learned in the first relationship: is you better choose better, because everybody's not your mom, everybody's not your dad. Um, in my current relationship, the next thing that I learned is you can't expect what took 20, 30 years to build, that you got to grow up and witness, and all these beautiful things that you got to see. You can't expect that out of somebody in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, that's an unfair thing to do, because one, this person has their own background coming into it. Two, you have, and this person together are a whole new concept that you have to figure out and learn. And I think that in my current relationship, I made it very difficult on my lady to really be able to make mistakes, because I was so quick to say, no, we got to fix this right now. Like, we got to get to this. We can't be, going about it this way, because that ain't love. Not realizing that, as a matter of fact, this is a part of love. And in fact, the reason that you're so against this is because you're not ready for what it's going to take to lead to grow you out of it, Miles. And that's what I had to learn, that you're running from the leadership aspect. And so it's easy for you to point the finger. It's easy for you to always say what she's doing wrong. It's easy for you to always call out that, oh, well, this ain't love. And then knowing that she comes from a background where there was divorce, now you're using and weaponizing that as a reason to say why you right in all these circumstances, because, well, my parents didn't do this, so I know it works. How you know it works, Miles? You've been married, you gone through it. No, you know what you saw, but that don't mean you know what it took to get there. And I think that's what I had to learn, is you're trying to expect out of your relationship in these early phases to reflect something that took decades for people to build, and is going to continue in my parents' marriage to continue to be built. Um, and so you can't place those expectations on a person when you guys are figuring it out together.
Man, that's amazing. And you said something like it. The two things came to mind. Uh, you said something about choosing, right?
Mm.
And I wrote down, the healthier you become, the better you choose.
That's a fact.
Right. The healthier you become, the better you choose. Now, sometimes that first, second, and third relationship may not be it for you, right? Especially if you wasn't exposed to the right thing. Like Miles, in your position, your parents showed you what love was. Your parents showed you what sacrifice was, but your parents didn't showed you what conflict resolution was like.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got into conflictual situations with your partners, maybe that was somewhere y'all went left, because that's not what you was exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Another thing that comes to mind is this. There's people that are in relationships that's been married for 30, 40 years, and we want what they have now, and we're on month one.
Yep.
Right. It's like, it takes time. I got to
Yep.
love you. And in our reality, you will never fully know a person, because we change in each season.
Mm.
Right. There's going to be a season where a woman is pregnant, where she may become a different person. There may be a season of sickness where a person becomes a different person. There's going to be a season when a person is up financially, and they're going to be a different person than who they are when they're completely broke. Right. You got to learn how to love these different type of things. And if you're not willing to know your partner, if you're not willing to study your partner, if you're not willing to just put that time in, yeah, you'll never get to that level. So that's actually really good, man.
Absolutely.
For me, I realized that, and I have another thought just came to mind. So don't let me forget that I need to ask y'all something else.
Okay.
But anyway, I learned that my love is very conditional. Right. Very conditional. And I learned that on my last two relationships, but more specifically my college relationship was in it for like 4.5 years. And there was a lot of questions that came up that let me know that it was conditional. For example, partner says, hey, if I were to ever gain weight, would you leave me? I said, yes. And it was like, why? I said, if it's not because of pregnancy, because of sickness, what are we doing? Like, at the time, I'm a personal trainer. Like, what do you need from me to help you not get there?
Mm-hmm.
So that was one side of things, right? My partner had long curly hair. If I were to ever cut my hair, would you leave me? Probably. I met you with the long hair, right? I guess in that stage, I didn't like change. Like I liked something that was consistent. Like,
Mm.
what are we changing for? I couldn't understand it. So, so you have moments like that. That's just small scale, but also big scale. And I remember a mentor of mine asked me, "Hey, could you marry that person? They would have never changed." I was like, "No." And they was like, "Why?" I said, "What do you expect?" I'm like, "Well, I'm expecting for them to become more, because I can't, I feel like I'll be selling if I stay with who they are now." So it was very conditional. You had to prove that you were good. If you had to prove that you could maintain a good shape, you had to prove all these different things. And I remember one time my partner kept coming to me, ex-partner kept coming to me, was like, "Hey, she was complaining about her pants not fitting or shirts not fitting or different things not fitting." So took matters to my own hands, right? One of my buddies was a personal trainer. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna give you this bread. How much is your rate? I'm gonna train you. I'm gonna pay you to train my lady." I paid him for 8 sessions.
Mm.
She went to 3 sessions, and then after the third session, 2 weeks goes by. He shoots me a percentage of my money back. I'm like, "What's this for?" He said, "Oh, she stopped showing up." That
Mm.
almost ended my relationship.
Mm.
I'm just like, if you won't train with me because I'm offering my services and you won't even show up for him, like, what are we doing? So
Mm.
I truly learned that it was conditional for me, and that came from my upbringing. My parents taught me that it was love was conditional. You
Yeah.
know, I learned that if money wasn't good enough, they was gonna find somebody else to do it. I learned that if somebody wasn't attractive enough, or not necessarily in the home, but just in my environment, like if I wasn't getting what I needed from my partner sexually, then I was going to find somebody else to do it. Right? It would just always conditional, even from the simplest as form as like haircuts, or somebody, my sisters might get their hair braided. If what they did or what they received wasn't perfect every single time, they'll find somebody else to do it. So I just learned that, okay, if you truly love somebody, then that means that they neither have to stay how they are, or they always have to perform at a high level in order for you to stay. And if they stop performing, or if they change who they are, then you need to change partners. That's
Mm.
what I learned. And it hit me like a can of bricks, because you get to a point in your life in your relationships where you're like, if I'm jumping in out of these relationships, and although I'm learning, I'm developing, I'm growing, but I'm still not maintaining, this isn't something I'm able to sustain. And I'm, I gotta look at me. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I learned. I was a man that loved under conditions. I would love you as long as,
Yeah.
and that sucks.
Mm.
I,
That's
I
so
want to I want to say something before we move to the next thing that I think is going to really help, and also confirm kind of what I said about managing the strong
mm.
black woman. So Ephesians chapter 4 verse 2. Y'all know I love going to the word.
Mm-hmm.
And it says here, this is in the New Living Translation for my Bible scholars. It says, always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Because of your love. And the breakdown, the description of that verse says, um, no one is ever going to be perfect here on earth. So we must accept and love other Christians in spite of their faults. When we see faults in fellow believers, we should be patient and gentle. Is there someone whose actions or personality really annoys you? Is there someone whose actions or personality really annoying to you? Rather than dwelling on that person's weaknesses or looking for faults, pray for him or her. Then do even more. Spend time together and see if you can learn to like him or her.
That's real good. See if
Bro,
you can learn to like him or her.
it's crazy because hearing that last part, like praying for them if you don't like it. I was having a conversation this past weekend. I was on vacation with a bunch of my guy friends and my sister. And one of my homeboys love him to death. Sometimes he be ticking me off because I feel like he's so doggone judgmental of people, and he be saying stuff that I'm like is unbecoming for somebody who I believe is like destined to be an amazing leader. And I just really want him to get out of certain mindsets and get right with the Lord, because I'm like, bro, if you get this together, ain't nothing gonna be able to stop you. but I can see that this gonna be your downfall. And one thing that I found myself doing too much, and the Lord convicted me of, is every single thing. It was to the point it was kind of just disturbing my spirit. He posts something, I just be mad, like, bro, here you go again with this. And I remember I had a conversation with him. We were riding in the car on the way, and I told him, I apologize because I know sometimes I feel like I can be too judgmental on you. And Rex is actually funny because what we talked about earlier when I said some of the cats that I'm close with, I feel like I'm the reason why some of them struggle with certain things in their life because I'm the one that was setting this example when they first met me, and they modeling it, and now I'm trying to get them out of it. And it's tough, bro, because the toughest thing to do, people say it's hard to pray for your enemy. Sometimes I think it's harder to pray for your friends and the people that you love whenever they are doing something that you think they should not be doing and you're tired of them doing it.
Yeah.
Because I think the ego gets involved. You feel like you done been around me enough. You done been influenced by me enough. We talk enough. You in this circle with me enough to where you shouldn't be doing this. And I can't be with somebody and call them a friend, a partner, a sibling, whatever. I can't be with a person and they're doing this. And yet everything that we're doing is showcasing no love.
Yeah.
Right. We're not doing anything constructive. We're just tearing them down because it disturbs our spirit instead of doing the one thing that we're really called to do, which, like you said, is to pray for a person whenever you see them doing wrong. Don't talk about them. And I've had to even do that in my own relationship, just being so judgmental and hard on her. And then realizing, like, bro, if you're continuously having the same conversation over and over again, and you don't feel like the certain things are moving, maybe it isn't for you to solve. Maybe it's for the Lord to solve. Maybe you need to learn how to shut up, exhibit the characteristics that you're desiring, whatever it is that you're looking for. Just make sure you exhibit it and start praying that the Lord bring her where he needs to take her.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny because I've been praying a specific prayer and been fighting a battle for about 2 years with my lady. And 2 Sundays ago, the prayer that I want to answer got answered.
That's amazing.
It was of nothing that I said or did. I just had started to give it to God and say, this is enough. I'm not the one. It got to be the Lord. So I just wanted to bring that up based on that Ephesians scripture.
That's amazing. Coach, what you got to say?
That was it.
Yeah, that was amazing. I love both of those stories and both their guest feedback.
Do we have any comments or questions?
No comments yet on IG.
Okay.
In our YouTube, Raphael said, "Women are treasures sent into our lives by God. They're beautiful and divine." And yeah, that's pretty much.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. I think we got time for one or two more questions, Rex.
Bet. What's the biggest lesson about love you wish you had learned earlier in life? What's the biggest lesson about love you wish you had learned earlier in life? Goodness, I think for me, the biggest lesson about love that I wish I would learn early in life is that their love hurts. And love is very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Love hurts and love is very uncomfortable because, if you are loving somebody properly, you have to constantly forgive them. Right. And if you're taught and raised on how to hold grudges, if you're taught and raised on how to keep the score, if you're taught and raised to keep tabs open every single time a person does this, but if you really want to love somebody properly, you forgive them daily. If you really want to love somebody properly, no matter how bad they piss you off, you still show up for them every single day to serve them. You still think about different ways to love them, to show up for them, to pour into them, regardless to how they make you feel. And it's like that real love, man, it can get uncomfortable. It's going to cause for you to grow. It's going to cause you to be challenged. It's going to cause you to step outside your comfort zone. It's going to cause you to have hard conversations and to sit in them. Right. That's that uncomfortable side. When somebody says, hey, I actually don't like the way you treat me. I actually don't like the way you touch me. I actually don't like the way we have sex or the way we're intimate. Like, regardless of their delivery, real love is saying, okay, what am I willing to do about it?
Mm.
Am I going to take this information, get so upset that I'm going to leave and try to find somebody else? Am I going to take this information and get defensive, and now I'm attacking you? Now we're having this wrestling match, or am I going to take this information and do a self-assessment about where I am and check my heart?
Yeah.
And check my heart and say, what am I willing to change about me in order to make this work? So I think that's something that I wish I would have known early, that love, it hurts and love is uncomfortable. But if you're willing to sit in that hurt, if you're willing to understand the hurt, if you're willing to acknowledge it and communicate it, if you're willing to be uncomfortable in different seasons to learn how to work through that uncomfortability, so on the other side of it, there's more grace, there's more peace, there's more their kindness, and you can operate in the fruit of the spirit. Like that, that'd be a game changer. So that's what I wish I knew.
I love that.
I wish I knew that you shouldn't give out love if you're gonna need it desperately back tomorrow.
Well, live what you can't live without.
Yeah, because people be saying, I love you because they really need love back.
Mhm.
And that when we only love people as a model for how we want to be loved, that's actually a form of manipulation.
Hmm. That's so true. That's so true. Did you have anything else you wanted to say to that? Because
Yeah. A form of manipulation. That's
it's the
good.
truth. We do it all the time. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's tough for you to realize that you're doing it, but when you really check yourself and your intentions, you're doing this because it'll make you feel good,
Yep.
not because it's going to make them feel good. And anytime your actions and love, quote unquote, are rooted in what makes you feel better and not what makes the collective feel better, then it's selfish.
Yeah.
It's selfish. So that's awesome, Coach. Um, the first thing that I would say is that, and this, Rex, you kind of hit what I want to say, so I'm just going to reframe it a little bit, but both of my things are in line with yours. The first thing is I wish I knew love was an action and not just a feeling, right? And what I mean by that is the feeling of love is easy. The action of love is not. For all the reasons that Rex said above, like love changes on a day-to-day basis in terms of what your partner is going to need from you. And so you think that because you've been a certain way for the last 5 years, that version of you is going to be perfect for when you enter into this new phase with your partner. And it might not be. Your partner might need you to go from being the person that was super solution oriented and a provider as a man to somebody who's a little bit more caring and more present, right? They might need you to be a little bit more thoughtful and less and proactive and less reactive and defensive. Like there's just differences that have to happen and change in love. And that is difficult. And that really leads to my second point, which is in order to make love work, you must first learn to work on yourself.
That's good.
Because nothing works if you don't work.
Yep.
Right? If you're not working and developing on yourself and every little thing that's going on, I don't care how small it is. I ain't saying you work on them all at one time because I'm not, you can't overwhelm yourself with all your faults because Lord knows we all have too many to count.
Yep.
But when you see an area of weakness, you take note of that. And when you get done with whatever area you've been working on, you feel like you've gotten to a level to where you, your partner, the people around you can see that change and you're proud of that change and it's not causing the same pains anymore. You pick up that next one and say, all right, cool. I know I've gotten my anger under control, but I'm still petty.
Yep.
Let me work on this pettiness. All right, I done got this pettiness under control. Now let me work on my acts of kindness. I'm not good at just doing things just to do them, right? And you just continue to develop, and that's a good thing. And if you're with a partner who calls you out on those things and makes you aware of the areas that you're weak It is not a sign that they are attacking you. It is a sign that they know you can do more. They know that you're capable of more, and they truly want to see you become more. So everything is not an attack, and it's okay to realize that you got some work to do. So yeah, those are my things.
It's okay to realize that you got some work to do, and everything is not an attack. That's absolutely the truth.
Mhm.
Goodness, listen, I hope people tap in, and I know people do tap in because I get responses throughout the week and say, "Hey, I tapped into the live.
Mhm.
I went and watched the replay on YouTube." Okay, so people are actually watching. But I really hope that you're putting into practice
Yes.
because it is love. I had a couple that came in tonight, and the man really has extreme performance anxiety. He feels so uncomfortable touching his partner sexually simply because um, his past experiences are all on why he was intoxicated and potentially being taken advantage of. So in his mindset, he's not a good lover. He doesn't know what he's doing. He freaks out. He goes into this fight or flight mode. And I said, in this season that you guys are currently in over the next couple of weeks, I want you guys to take sex off the table.
Mm.
The focus is going to be communication. The focus is going to be emotional intimacy. The focus is going to be spiritual intimacy. And then also, and I gave them a few exercises to build up to physical touch. But I was like, but in this season with one partner, her needing this, like I need to have this connection with my partner. Yeah, because if we're not having intercourse, I don't feel like I'm connected. And him not really caring too much about it, this is make or break for her. So I said, the love. If there's love here, is going to be you both being patient with each other as you learn and navigate this season. Because if you don't give him the opportunity to grow, to learn you, to teach him, then you're going to leave him, right? And if he doesn't give himself that opportunity, he's going to continue beating himself up because it's not happening fast enough. So are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to wait? Are you willing to be focused? Are you willing to, man, just continue to pour into each other? So it takes time. It takes a lot. So I hope everybody's listening.
That was amazing, Rex. Guys, we hope you loved this episode, right? Who trained you on how to love? Make sure you guys are clicking that link and the links in the bios to subscribe to our newsletter. Um, I'm Miles the Millennial. I don't have anything for you guys. I'm just pouring into you. I just love y'all. Um, Go, the one thing y'all can do, go pick up a Bible. You know what I'm saying? Start reading it, something, get closer with the Lord. That's the one thing that I got to offer y'all today. But Rex, Coach, what do you guys got?
Uh, almost said something funny. Man, listen, hey, keep God in your life, man.
I know what you're about to say. I know exactly what you're about to say.
Hey,
That Drewski.
yeah, bro. And I just had to remember where I was for a second. God working with my heart. He working on my heart. But on a serious note, though, if you found value in this conversation, tell your friends about it. We report live here every Tuesday. Tap into Let's Talk Like Man podcast. We were dropping a new episode on Friday. To show, we literally have over 520 pieces of content, free content that you can learn from, that you can grow from. And, tap in with Coach Lauren as well. She's offering so many great things. So if you really want to grow, you really want to develop relationally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, like we have the resources. So it's not because you don't have access to it. If you don't grow, it's because you ain't want about it enough. So that's all I need to say.
The end. Let the church say amen. Is there one? Come on up to
Amen. Shout out to Coach Lauren on her is it a webinar tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to her. Tell us all about it. We can't wait to hear about it. And we're just so excited for everything happening in your world, Coach. Can't wait to get you on the show. We miss you. So we're looking forward to you coming down and kicking it with us.
All righty. Well, I appreciate it. Well, guys, let's spend our time tonight. And click the link in my bio, grab your seat.
Yes.
The untold truth about marriage. We're gonna say
out.
So
All
we'll
right,
see you guys next Tuesday.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace, love, and chicken grease.